Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr., and you are watching Yankees Unloaded. The Yankees put themselves back in the L column in this one, 9-3 loss to the Jays. Kind of annoying because, Gary, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I thought they played pretty decently. I thought the offense, showed some signs, that they're kind of turning a corner, perhaps. I mean, Glaber, another two-hit game for him, looked more confident at the plate. Verdugo continues to slump, which is a little concerning, but,
Little
Glaber hit
promotion in the
well.
lineup, by the way. Side note, Ben Rice moving up to the
Yeah.
2 spot. Of course, Juan Soto wasn't in the lineup, so that was
Yeah.
good to
Well,
see. I think a lot of us like that.
I loved that. I think Ben Rice is just really focused on just getting the bat on the ball, which is something that a rookie never does. Okay. Rookies are always trying to golf it into the stands because they're like, how can I make the most impact? A home run, right? We saw that with Volpe. And it's a reason why, Volpe's average went down the tubes last year.
Yep.
And so I really like his approach at the plate. I like his level swing. There are already people complaining. Volpe hasn't, I saw, you already know where I'm going with that, I think. On
Nope.
Twitter, someone posted, when's the last time Volpe hit a home run? Who gives a rip? I don't care.
Oh, they actually are asking about Volpe's homers. Yeah, I just never cared because the context of
I
your
just
lineup
don't.
also matters. I mean, how many times did any of us, I mean, there are a lot of us who are huge fans of the New York Yankees. When was the last time we had a conversation about why can't Jeter hit 25 bombs? Why couldn't he? Hey, someone actually answer that
Yeah.
question for me. Is there a reason Derek Jeter couldn't hit 25 homers? Now, of course, it's a silly question to ask. We never would ask that because it wasn't his job. His job was to get on base, to be a table setter. We've talked about this before. Anthony Volpe moving up to the leadoff spot is about fit. He's got speed, right? There's other ways that he can affect a game. And we've kind of talked about it is that sometimes, yeah, he might go 0 for 2, 2 walks, but you'll see the runs scored column and he scored 2 runs without really doing any damage offensively. That's because of his style and his actual job. He's doing his job. So you can't judge Anthony Volpe off homers. You can't judge Verdugo off homers. There are actually a few players on our team that, frankly, we shouldn't be staring at the home run column. That's what Juan Soto and Aaron Judge are for. That's the reason we brought Rizzo in, right? To be a veteran presence, on base guy. You hit homers, you put the ball in the seats. That's your job. But as far as Volpe and then kind of the way Rice plays the game is that they're trying to impact the game in other ways. We saw the other day, Volpe changed a game entirely by dropping a bunt down. I know some people may have forgot this, but he drops a bunt down, sets the table for Juan Soto's 3-0 3-run jack, completely changed the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just some of the ways that anything other than power can change this game.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Juan Soto being injured. I mean, this whole, bruising his hand. First off, stock down for those oven mitts that look ridiculous and they clearly don't help. What I'm going to say is this, you know, you mentioned him missing this game, and I think it took a toll on the Yankees to keep, lose a guy like
Sure.
that. He's out of the lineup. Someone has to step up. And I thought the thing that was so frustrating about this game is they got the bat on the ball early on. You had 2 on, runners on first and second, Judge on first. And of course, you had, Ben Rice on second, 2 outs, and they go with the double steal with Glaber at the plate. I agreed with it. Okay. I have no issue with Boone, who sees this as a concern. Clearly, they're not scoring runs at the beginning of the game like they used to, which is leading to losses. Okay. And I had no issue with it. And I feel like too many people are looking at the result and are like, this is a bad decision. I think it was a great decision. I like the aggression early on. Their game plan made a lot of sense. And I will say this. I think it brought up a bigger issue. Was Ben Rice safe at third? I don't know. Maybe not. But the call in the field was that he was safe. And then they overturned it with review. And they're like, he might have clipped him there before because like he had more of the slide needs to be better, but he had more of a slide that it ended up being closer than maybe it should have been. And there's just no way to know for sure because the moment you see the pant leg get hit by the tag, he's safe. So we don't know if he grazed him, But I guess to me, it brings up a bigger issue, Gary, with that whole replay thing, because we've talked about this now multiple times on the show. um, the language was always definitive, right? And the call on
Mhm.
the field is going to stand unless it is obvious, clear, concise, obvious that, this should be overturned. They overturned that call, which had a lot of, value there, because at that
Mhm.
point, if it's not
It was
overturned and the call
absolutely a game.
stands,
Yeah. Because you
it's
look at the
second
final
and
score
third.
of this game, you're like, oh, a call or two wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah,
But it does change the complexity of a game. But Jake, you mentioned aggressiveness. I always love seeing the Yankees play aggressive because, to be honest with you, when you're watching the Yankees play and sometimes they'll give a lackluster effort, or you look at the score and say, okay, we lost 8-2, and it doesn't look like at any point aggressiveness was applied, right? They didn't apply any championship pressure, because you need to apply pressure throughout a game, especially the way it's
absolutely.
unfolding before you. But I'll say this: when you don't have guys like Juan Soto in the lineup, it's really clear we're undermanned. Okay. You can call the Yankees top heavy. You can say that they don't have depth. I think those are fair assessments right now, given the output of some of the players that they have in their lineup. Alex Verdugo being the main guy that I'm talking about right now, because he's hitting fourth today. When you hit fourth, you're a run producer. You're somebody who's coming up to the plate with traffic on the base pass. Overall, I didn't think today was an awful offensive day. You mentioned it before we went on the show, but when you've got your four hitter you're talking about in the month of June, he's hitting 220. His on base percentage is 269. His slugging is 320. Okay, that's just not getting it done. Now, he'll tell you that he's not putting up the numbers that he expects, but he's driven in 40 runs this year. He's been highly productive for the Yankees, but that production's been streaky. Absolutely, full stop, streaky. And when you have a guy like Juan Soto missing from the lineup with a bruised hand, they're calling it, well,
Yeah,
your four hitter that day can't have a 269 on base percentage for 100 full at bats. That's just not going to get it done. And that's why I say, rightfully so, when someone describes this Yankees lineup as top heavy, lacking depth, you can say it's AAA, 6 through 9, whatever you want to say. But when you're talking about the Yankees championship hopes, they have to be healthy in order for it to look like a championship team, because frankly, organizationally, this team clearly doesn't have, whether it's enough faith in their young players down below to make a call up, whether it be Ramirez, um, going full board in with Wells, who Austin Wells was the best player on the field today by some way. And that's actually something, Jake, I want to transition to, because Austin Wells is a player that we've talked about his athleticism and just how that can help transform the Yankees and in terms of what they need. Because you can never have enough of a player who's got the ceiling offensively to be a excellent, or definitely an above average offensive player in this league, but also a really good defensive catcher. I think Austin Wells is highly underrated because of how good the
absolutely.
glove is, the blocking is from Trevino. We've kind of overlooked defensively what Wells can do. So, in my opinion, analytically, and I know we don't love to stare at analytics, but just the eye test of Austin Wells, he hits a lot of baseballs really hard.
He
He
does.
looks like he belongs. And you look up at his numbers, they're not going to jump off the screen. He's not hitting 320. He's not going to hit 20 bombs. Like, he hasn't done that yet. But given the contact he's making, what he did today, I thought he was excellent today.
No, I did too. I think he needed today. It's been a little tough for him because he's not getting to play every week. Maybe once a week, but really not much. Trevino's kind of taken over. And I mean, we have our issues with Trevino, but he started off the year batting, pretty decently. Now he's kind of come back down to earth. And I think Wells has an opportunity here to, kind of start cutting into that playing time. I mean, now Trevino's hitting what, 247. I mean, now Austin Wells is now up to 213. So it took him a while to get above the 200 mark, but it just seems like he continues to at least chop, ever so slightly away at that. And so, I look at Wells right now, 304 on base percentage. So it's over 300 now. A guy that has a better eye than Trevino, in my opinion, walks more. And I got news for you. I think he's got legitimate 25 to 30 home run power potential. I mean, I think when you see it, like he can knock that thing out. I just think the problem is, yeah, like the unluckiness, he bats the ball hard. He's got a very level swing as well. But there was a little uppercut there in that home run. I think he was definitely trying to go a little bit more, And I mean, by all means, I mean, if he
Every
starts
once in a
hitting,
while.
yeah, if he starts hitting home runs like that, I just think I kind of always felt like he was a guy that could at least have 25 bombs in a season. I don't think that's crazy. 25, 260, maybe 60 RBIs and like 15 stolen bases. I think that's kind of like if you could put together like the best season that you could expect from him, I think that would be that. And that's it's kind of, trying to keep, expectations tempered because I don't think that's going crazy. I'm not saying he's going to hit like Joe Mauer 330 or whatever, but if he adds a 260 batting average to this lineup and he's hitting 25 homers and stealing 15, and batting in 60, I mean, I think anybody would take that. So, he had a extra base hit today. Ben Rice had his first career extra base hit today. And I think that's, again, just the really annoying thing about this game is 9-3 doesn't really indicate what this game really
No,
was.
the issue was
You
the
know,
pitching. I
yeah.
mean,
And
hey Jake, did
I
you know
don't
we gave
think,
up 10 straight first inning runs?
yes, I did know
That's
that.
unacceptable. It's bad.
It's not great. Aside from the home run Cortez gave up, he wasn't terrible. He really wasn't. He didn't have his best stuff, but he wasn't terrible. And then of course Cousins comes in, pitches 2/3 of an inning, has a strikeout. Then they take him out and they put in Bickford, and that's when everything goes to hell. 4 hits, 5 earned runs, a walk. He's now at a 14.40 ERA. I mean, meanwhile, Yuendris Gomez, who gave you 5 innings of shutout ball out of the bullpen, and he's nowhere to be seen. I just don't know what we're doing.
They send him home. Yeah.
I really don't, because this is why Clayton Andrews, by the way, was like, yeah. And I'm not saying Clayton Andrews is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but if you're wondering why he opted for free agency over a AAA assignment, it's because he's probably tired of the BS that the Yankees continue to throw.
Yeah,
at
the
these
Yankees
guys.
can definitely play some games because, I mean, we did this with Marinaccio as well. We
Yeah.
saw some really positive performances. Now, of course, he's kind of regressed a little bit and shown some lackluster performances that you'd say, okay, well, maybe this is what the Yankees were seeing. Who knows? But it doesn't necessarily seem performance based on these decision making. It seems a lot of, whether it be analytics, is it their options, what they have contractually going on, is it roster control, as you mentioned with Andrews, who was out of options. So yeah, it's just interesting because you have to imagine, I talked to you before we actually went live and we were talking about getting rid of Gonzalez. And at the time, Gonzalez's ERA, which I know ERA is a dinosaur number at this point. No one talks about it, but if your ERA is low, it means you get outs. You just don't necessarily know how they got the outs, but they did. Okay. And so his ERA was highly serviceable, but his strikeout numbers, we're talking Gonzalez here, were low, right? He wasn't punching guys out. And clearly, Matt Blake and this staff really put a high emphasis on strikeout numbers. And I guess rightfully so. Like, everybody's out after strikeouts. You don't have to play any defense when you strike a guy out. I totally get it. But Bickford in that pickup was about strikeouts. Bickford in his career, and his numbers are right here, he's thrown 184 games in his career, 185 innings and 2/3, 208 strikeouts. So clearly knows how to strike guys out. He's a professional at doing that. But at the same time, except for today, which I believe he had one.
No,
not even. But again, his career whip is 125. So they're looking at his potential as far as missing bats. And today he didn't miss a bat, not one. So, if your job is to miss bats and you're hitting the center of the barrel, well, then, I do have to ask why you're there.
Yeah. I mean, if his goal was to get contact, he certainly hit that goal. Because today was just, and the thing that is really, again, frustrating is not only was the offense, playing well, but, this was a game, man. This is a game. I mean, Judge singles to center, scores, Volpe. It's 3-1. And then the 6th inning, that's when you start to see, okay, so, they score, 2 runs. And then they have the Guerrero double. And then, of course, the eighth inning by that point didn't even matter. It was 8-1. The game's over. But it's frustrating because what does that do to you? You know, when you put in a bullpen guy and he just gives up 5 runs like that, it's just like that, dude, that is the end of the game. You are done. You are dead in the water. That 3-1 game now is 8-1. Good luck, especially that late in the game. So just a really frustrating game, end of the day. You know, hats off to the Jays. You know, I'm not going to sit here and take anything away from their offense because I think, you know, yesterday the Yankees found something and they brought it to the ballpark today. They really did. And there were some, you know, mishaps, the bad call, in my opinion, at third, the overturn, which is ridiculous. You know, obviously Bickford, like Cortez only gave up 3 runs. Now he only pitched 4 and a third, but like 3 runs should be fine. Like if your offense is clicking, and I think today, honestly, if Cortez gave up 3 and that was the entire game, I think the Yankees would have found a way to score more than 3 and win the game. I think it changes
Yeah.
everything.
Well, you can't give up 8 runs and expect to win a game. You can call this a championship team. You can call it whatever you want, but guys have to perform. And there's a reason that we play 162 games is that we make a judgment of who you are after 162. People want to make judgments about their team in June, and that's understandable. It's what's right in front of you. But it matters that if you pitch really well last month, well, you still have to show up this month and perform. Okay. And so far, our bullpen just hasn't been it. Our starting pitching hasn't been it. You can't give up a run in the first inning 10 straight games and then expect to turn around and say, well, where's our offense? Well, part of baseball is momentum. And when you're down 1-0 every single day for 10 straight days, well, it's going to wear on you. And then if you miss Juan Soto because he's got a bruised hand, the team inherently knows we've got more pressure on us. Guys like JD Davis, the Oswaldo Cabreras, the Wells, all those guys of the world know I've got to perform today. I'm not necessarily a role player. I have to produce. I need to be a run producer. And I know it's their job to be run producers, but it depends how much pressure you put on them because that will change the way guys perform. And we have to remember tomorrow we've got Garrett Cole on the mound. Garrett Cole is our best pitcher. I know that Luis Gil has been special all year. He's kind of regressed a little bit these last 2 starts. We expect him to figure it out, but this is the real deal here. This is Garrett Cole, and we need to see some progression from him, and hopefully see some like prevention tomorrow. Because you can't look at this offense and talk about their depth and lack thereof when your starting pitchers and your bullpen are putting together performances that gives up 6 or 7 runs. You're not winning those games. It doesn't really matter who you've got in your lineup. Doesn't matter if you're the Dodgers, Houston, or us. It's just is what it is. But tomorrow we're facing Kevin Gausman, which, by the way, and I as soon as I saw that name, I knew Aaron Judge plays very well. Okay, Aaron Judge, both he, Soto, JD Davis. JD Davis actually has an ops of almost 1,300 against Kevin Gausman. Which
crazy.
is interesting. I know it's not in a ton of at bats. It's only 5 at bats.
Still though.
Yeah. But Juan Soto,
watch him not be in the lineup,
is 1,600 against Kevin Gausman. So we've got a lot of success. Trevino's ops is almost 1,400 in his appearances against Gausman. So there are a lot of guys that should be coming into tomorrow's start. And I guess we should say today when you're watching the show, they're coming in with confidence offensively. Garrett Cole has a job to do. It is to make sure that this offense stays in the game. We're expecting to see Juan Soto today. I know they said it was a day-to-day thing. I'm expecting him to play. And reality is that this team needs to go out there. The biggest inning of the entire game is inning number 1. If Garrett Cole can get out of the first inning clean, I'm expecting a solid start. But if you don't, well, then the Yankees have no reason to think that this game is going to be any different than any other game the last 2 weeks.
No, I hear you. This series has been all IKF and Vladdy Jr. I mean, they have just absolutely tormented the Yankees. IKF had 4 hits today. Vladdy had 3. I mean, I could sit here and I mean I'll just sound like a broken record, but I'll put it out there because maybe not everybody knows. I was a big IKF fan. I think I really defended him every single game, it seemed like, during his tenure. Because you take a Gold Glove third baseman who has the ability to catch, you never let him catch, and you
Mhm.
play him at shortstop, and that was just insane to me. And
Yeah, we
he
called
could,
him a stopgap shortstop. That's exactly how we described him.
and now this stopgap shortstop is playing second base where he could be right now in New York. He's better than DJ LeMahieu, has been better than DJ LeMahieu the last probably 3 years. Um, so he could be in place of DJ LeMahieu. He's better than Cabrera. He's better. I mean, right now he's better than Volpe. Like this guy is like hitting really well. He's almost at 300 now. So it is frustrating. I'm happy for him, but it's really frustrating to see that because they're like, this guy was not that expensive. He should have been brought back. They traded for him. He was the main reason you made the trade. That was why you made that trade,
Yeah.
because they wanted him, not Donaldson. They took on Donaldson's money and then they, used an excuse. Well, we really like his power bat and his defense. Maybe you did, but we all know you had to take him on in order to get IKF, who you wanted. So, I mean, it was just a poor decision to go out and get IKF, who was a third baseman, a Gold Glover, and move him to shortstop. That was just dumb, but it was smart to get him. And last
Mhm.
year, for better or for worse, he stepped up there at the plate, whether he was booed or not. That guy always came through, in a sense where, he was always on to the next at bat. Like he didn't let things bother him and he'd come
That
up
was
there.
noticeable, by the way. That
Yeah,
that approach was noticeable. But what's crazy is IKF's a good player in this league,
he is a good player.
depending on what position you put him in. Not defensively. I don't mean that.
No,
It just
I
means
get what you're saying.
situationally. If you put a player who you consider a really good role player in the league, and then you just throw him at the 3 spot in your lineup and say, hey, be 120, driving 120 this year. That's what I need from you. Well, then that player might not look as good as you thought, but that's not his job. Like some guys are meant to be role players. Some guys are, let's stick him at second base. He can field that position, not as physically demanding as shortstop. And we need you to be a contact bat, run the bases hard, be athletic, give us that different flavor because obviously Vladdy Jr., right? Justin Turner, who hits right behind him today, not as athletic. So you need to bring a different dynamic to this lineup. Last year with the Yankees, or during IKF's tenure with the Yankees, it was okay, you're going to be here at shortstop, be this lesser version of what we're expecting Anthony Volpe to kind of walk into. You're not a long-term solution. Jake, you said that you were a huge fan of his. You were talking about, how good he is just overall as a player, like being an overall baseball player. He's actually a really good player, highly underrated. And we frankly put him in over his skis. We were asking him to do stuff, frankly, he wasn't comfortable doing. And then we just acted like he was underperforming. No, we put him in a position that frankly was never going to work. And you see today in 2024 a player who frankly he does it all. And so when he's in a position where there's not as much pressure on him in the lineup, you get what you see. You see exactly. I mean, this guy, his ops is almost 800, right? League average, as I've mentioned all the time, is 700. This is a player that we described as a guy who just slaps the ball over the field, doesn't really have much pop. No, he does. It's in there.
Yeah.
So, IKF's a really good player. And like you said, not very expensive. So I guess we were already spending $300 million. Some money on the Yankees payroll is going to players, frankly, who really aren't contributing much. But I feel like they should have found a way. They should have found a spot for him.
And that's consistent with what we said at the beginning of the year when he had the nice things to say. Like he's like really appreciate the Yankees fan base and like the way they, because I mean, like people were like apparently cheering for him at the stadium when he came up and everything, which is cool, And it does remind you that Twitter doesn't exist and it's just Twitter. Like people who are like, yeah, he's trash or whatever. Like who cares? But I'm glad to see IKF hitting well.
Me too.
In the words of Joker
Yep.
from the Joker movie, you get what you fucking deserve. Okay,
Yeah.
and to me, that's where I'm at with the Yankees in regards to IKF. You're struggling. We're now talking about getting Jazz Chisholm, you and I.
Yeah.
today could not have been any more of an indication that they need to do that. I mean, I think they really need that one more piece because when they get fully healthy and they have him in October, they are going to be really good. I think, having him and Stanton and, of course, Jason Dominguez and Judge and Soto and Volpe. I mean, Wells hitting like he did today and Rice. I mean, that's a really fun freaking lineup. So, I think ultimately, we'll see what ends up happening. I saw a comment saying they wanted us to make a trade now, and I'm not even against that. I mean, if the Marlins would make the damn trade right now, I'd do it right now. I just think the Marlins, knowing the Marlins, if they're going to trade Chisholm, if they're going to trade Tanner Scott, it's going to be the deadline because that's when, you're going to have a bidding war. You're not going to get into a bidding war now, but this would be the time, like the Yankees, if they wanted to kind of rug pull the rest of the league, they go out and they make this move. I mean, now you're forcing everyone's hand because how we talk about all the time. Sometimes the best move is the one you don't make, right?
Right.
The Yankees could be destructive if they went out and made this move because they need to make a move, at least one. And if they made this move, it could force a nonstop chain of events. The Dodgers are going to have to make a move now. The Phillies are going to have to make a move. The Orioles are going to have to make a move. All these teams, right? The Guardians. And the reason I say it could cause, chaos and be destructive is because when I say make a move, there's not a lot of guys left to make a move for. So by doing this and causing this, I guess, chain of events, you could force the Dodgers to just give up the farm for like just some random dude. I mean, and that's the thing. And like same thing with the Orioles. So we see it all the time. I mean, that's why for whatever reason, dude makes his money. Dude gets traded every year. He's like valuable during the deadline. I'm talking about the guy that the Yankees are always apparently interested in, who they've never traded for before. He was with the Cardinals. He was with the Pirates. He was with Jose Quintana. Quintana is the definition of why the trade deadline can be the biggest
He's an
scam.
arm.
Okay? Because, exactly. When people are like, I just want an arm. Okay, here's Jose Quintana. There's your arm. I mean, I know it's,
he's going to have a 4.63 for you. He's not really going to get anyone good out, but he'll pitch.
But you participated in an event. You got FOMO, and see, FOMO leads to that. The whole fear of missing out is like, oh, I just want to make a trade. It's like that league mate, in your fantasy baseball league that's like, oh, I just need to make a trade, and they trade for like, I don't know, Josh Bell, and it's like, why the hell did you do that? It's like, I wanted to participate. Like, all right.
Yeah, but I agree with you that the Yankees don't have to wait till late July to make a deal. That's just not how this works. And you have to also remember, right now, I'm sure there's people listening who are thinking, well, Gleyber Torres, these last 2 days, swinging a hot bat. He's clearly found something. So maybe we should stick on, we should hang on to him. Well, if you have a player, let's just say he wasn't playing well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wouldn't your perception be that his value is lower as opposed to if he was playing well? Well, then why would you wait until a player is playing horrible to then make the decision, okay, we think he's playing bad for long enough and we think at no point in the future he'll play well at all. Let's trade him now because we have no use for him. Well, you think another team in Major League Baseball finds him more valuable because he hasn't played well at all the past month and a half? They don't. So when you see a player like Gleyber Torres finding it, we talked about this last show, and I really think we need to put an emphasis on this, is that Gleyber Torres playing well
is an opportunity.
This is absolutely a strong opportunity for the Yankees to say, this is the player. Remember that player that the Marlins really wanted for 4 years in a row? Yeah, this is the guy he really is. And which you can argue Gleyber Torres has found it. Like he potentially, I'm not saying he did, but you can make the argument that, okay, he's getting more confident. 2 of the last 3 years, he's been excellent. So he'll go back to that version of Gleyber Torres at some point. I believe that. So when he's playing well, you want to sell to an organization who believes in him if they have an asset that you need. And right now they do. They have an asset that we need. They have 2 of them that we really could need. And frankly, when we describe this as a World Series team, that was healthy. Okay. That was not dealing with injuries. That's also not considering once we have those injuries, it really exposes the lack of organizational offensive depth. And you see 6 through 9 in our lineup, outside of Wells today, really struggle, not that good. And some of these trades out there involving Gleyber Torres could help 6 through 9 the lineup. And so that's why I like it so much. And if the Yankees want to seriously make a bid at a World Series, and I think this year they really have to make a bid. They don't necessarily have to win, but not getting anywhere close to the World Series this year as the New York Yankees, and people can believe they're a World Series team or not. If they don't get close this year, like at least to an American League Championship Series, it is mayhem in pinstripes. It just is.
Well, I hate to say it, you gotta win this year with Soto because you don't know what the future holds. I mean, we think he'll be back, and I mean, I feel very confident he'll be back. But again, like
you're right, we don't know.
We don't know, and so I mean, I thought Von Miller would be back for the Rams after they won the Super Bowl, and he didn't. He went to the Bills, so you never know. I mean, I don't think anybody thought Tom Brady would leave the Patriots. I don't think anybody thought the Red Sox would trade Mookie Betts away to the Dodgers.
It's business, right?
Yeah, it is
the Red Sox would love to have Mookie Betts, but you also have to pay him, and you can easily make the argument the Red Sox should have paid him. John Henry, their owner, he should have paid him, but he has business ventures overseas in Europe with all types of soccer teams. He doesn't give a rip about baseball. So that's part of what goes into the decision making. So business is involved here. A bunch of guys in suits are making these decisions. It's not like, do we want this player? Okay, he will be back then. It is bigger than that. So we don't know, like you said, what's going to happen with Soto.
I mean, for all we know, Randy Levine will stick his nose in here again and start saying, no, don't pay him. He's another Dylan Betances, and cause him to walk away. And someone needs to lock him in a small closet where there's nothing of any kind. I mean, he just, like, I still always go back to the Betances thing. That was not how you do business. That was a bad look across baseball. So hopefully he's nowhere near that. Unfortunately,
the ugly side of the business.
The very ugly side of the business. Unfortunately, you still have to deal with Scott Boras. God. There's also a Rob Boras. I won't get into that, but Scott Boras still have to deal with. And when I say I have never met this guy, I don't know him personally, but just the stuff I've heard, I just really dislike him. That's putting it lightly. I just don't like the way I just don't think he's that great anymore. I think he was made by George Steinbrenner. And now I don't think he's really that great. I mean, just look at his track record. You want me to describe,
because obviously I know Scott Boras very well because he represented my dad.
Yeah.
And honestly, the best way I can describe Scott Boras, because there are people with really strong opinions about him, and I totally get it. Here's what happened with Scott Boras. Mm-hmm. Scott Boras is a way better agent than any other agent by a mile at the beginning. Okay? At the beginning of his career. Now, he leveraged himself. Now, he did the work. It's not like he was handed this. Okay? He did the work, and he figured out how to maximize the business side of the game. Okay? But the business side of the game doesn't necessarily have any bearing on what's going to happen in terms of winning. So, what eventually happened with Scott Boras is that the more solid and just lucrative his contracts became at the beginning of his career, he was making so much money because he gets a cut of this money. Everybody knows this. So Scott Boras was like, well, I've made $800 million in my life, or $500 million. I'm cool waiting on the check until the end of spring training. Other agents in Major League Baseball are not confident enough. They're not in a position financially enough to say, yeah, we'll go after that 8-year, $300 million deal. If we get to the end of spring training, so what? We'll just wait it out. And then he'll be like, oh shit, I guess 2 years, $88 million is what we have to pivot to. And then he'll go sign that offer. That's not what's best for the player, but he has so much financial backing, created by himself, that he's fine with playing with your future. He's going after the big number because he wants to create a narrative, which is that I'm the best decision any player can make. I'm going to make you the most money possible. And so frankly, when you're working with a client who's hired a guy who's essentially said, I'm going to give you top dollar. That's his job. He doesn't give a rat's ass if you play for the Yankees, you go to the Mariners. He doesn't care if Juan Soto plays in Mexico next year. If Juan Soto makes $700 million and he eclipses the AAV of Shohei Ohtani, well, then Scott Boras is a happy camper. He couldn't care less if he's playing for the Pinstripes. He likes the Yankees because the Yankees have money. End of story. So that's really the story of Scott Boras. Scott Boras has, through hard work and dedication, put himself in such a financial position where he can completely forego the winning side of the game and completely dedicate himself to maximizing the dollar. And it sends players, to whoever cares, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't care where they go.
We saw what happened with his guys this year. We'll see, but yeah, I think that'll do it. I mean, in conclusion, because if you didn't see yesterday's episode, just to explain real quick why we're so interested in Chisholm and Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott's a lefty. He's their closer right now. He's really good. Guy that his only issue are walks, but I mean, it's not even really like a pressing issue. Very good pitcher, good, pitch selection, location, not really wild. But also, he misses bats, and when he generates contacts, it's soft contact. So he's somebody that you can trust, in my opinion, going into October. As far as Chisholm, guy can play any outfield position, can play second base, can play shortstop. Who knows about third? I think the only position he really couldn't play is first. But the point here is that by getting him, okay, you would be moving in this scenario, you'd be moving Glaber, you'd be moving assets that you'll probably lose in the Rule 5 draft anyway. And you could put him in this lineup and add more contact, more speed on the base pass, not just when he's on, when he makes contact with the baseball, but when he's on the base paths, like when, someone else is up in the run game, and how he could steal bases, and, his range, what he can do in center field if they ever need to give Jason Dominguez or Aaron Judge or whoever a break. So I think it's a perfect fit, and he's electric. So, I think he'd be a fan favorite instantaneously.
Yeah, he's a threat.
Yeah,
he's definitely a threat. And by the way, Clay Holmes' ERA, you were mentioning Tanner Scott.
Yeah.
His ERA in June is 5.59. Okay, so he's got some holes in his game, right? He definitely has a lower floor than I think a lot of people want to discuss. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. When you look at Clay Holmes, you see his ERA in the mid ones, you think, or the mid twos, excuse me. You assume, okay, well, this player must have had success long term. He's probably been steady all year. He's obviously piling up the saves. Well, watching the Yankees play, it tells a different story. It tells a story of a player who's either completely dominant or he looks like a project that has really good stuff that you just can't really figure out who he is. Well, I expect at some point or another this season for Clay Holmes to return to early season form. But I think I would be a fool in telling you when that would be, or if that will be in October. We don't necessarily have any assurance that Clay Holmes is going to be electric in October. We just don't know that. Okay, no. So I think bringing Scott in here, it puts a good enough player in the bullpen to where the Yankees and Aaron Boone specifically can say, I'm gonna throw the player who's throwing the best. And you actually have two options to finish a game. And I think the Yankees need more options, than they have right now. I just think we're a little short.
I agree. And with Chisholm, you have 2 years of control. And why is he available? Because it's the Marlins.
Because Marlins.
I wouldn't trade him. I wouldn't be trading a 26-year-old with 2 years of control. But it's the Marlins. And we know they had Miguel Cabrera. They had Dontrelle Willis. They had Josh Beckett.
They had Gary Sheffield.
They had all these guys. And eventually they were just like, you know what? We don't want to pay anybody. So we're just going to get rid of them all.
By all means.
And Tigers are like, all right, Miguel Cabrera, come on down. That's kind of a no-brainer.
Still a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, crazy. But that's going to do it. Appreciate you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to follow us on all social media at JK Bogan, at Gary Sheffield Jr., and at Yankees Unloaded. And until next time, we'll see you guys soon.
and like this video.